And I think it's reasonable for the president to say, if a terrorist has on his cell phone a bunch of phone numbers, we don't know that those people in the U.S. are terrorists or are colluding with him, but it might not be a bad idea to go monitor those guys' phones for a while and see who else they're talking to within the U.S. They can't be used in court. No one's going to be indicted for this. I think it's a legitimate use of the president's constitutional authority. FISA doesn't preclude this. If Congress wants to have oversight hearings, fine. It's a classified program. They'll have to have classified, I suppose, private hearings. But the idea that this is an abuse of civil liberties, I think, is wrong. And the idea that the New York Times pops this story out on Friday, they've sat on it for a year. Friday morning, when the Patriot Act's being debated, there it appears on the front page of the New York Times. And the Democrats use this as an excuse to filibuster the Patriot Act. I think the president was right to be aggressive. It's pretty impressive what he did. They ripped up the planned radio address. He gave his speech live from the Roosevelt Room yesterday morning. And they're willing to fight on this issue, I think, of whether this is a reasonable use of presidential authority in the war on terror.
Well, I mean, I find this so interesting. I mean, without a doubt, Britt says, well, now the terrorists will know what they're... But if they had simply... The terrorists realized that you could get a warrant and do this wiretap before. So, I mean, I don't see that the terrorists are going to change or the terrorists know anything more. The New York Times, if they had broken this story a year ago, it might have affected the election. I would think that you would say, gee, these people were unusually cautious, waiting an entire year, and even now omitting some information from their report. So, the whole thing seems to me very upsetting, and it's not because you say, oh, we want to give the terrorists a break. This country needs to defeat terrorism. There's just no way around that. That's the point of the whole effort. But once you say that, you have to protect what we're fighting for, which is a democracy with civil liberties in place. When you hear just this week that the Pentagon has data in its computers on people who were not involved with any terrorist activity, and it's failed to delete it according to their own standards, it makes you wonder why this administration refuses to go to the courts, why it doesn't encourage more congressional oversight. Instead, there's been this abrogation of power and consolidation of power that makes me fear. It's not that you say, oh, where is the evidence that they have abused the power already? If the question is, oh, so what happens when the next guy comes along and the next guy is some wild-eyed, let's say in your case you would say wild-eyed Democrat who doesn't like some Republican, and he said, oh, well, I'm using the authority established by President Bush last term. You wouldn't like that, Bill.
I wish Bill Clinton had done this. I wish we had tapped the phones of the people of Mohammed Atta here in the United States if we discovered phone calls from Afghanistan to him. That was why 9/11 happened. That's what connecting the dots is.
And that's why the Pentagon
I will support a Democratic president doing this, believe me.
If you going after the terrorists, so would a FISA court support just as you support.
No,
but when you start, as the Pentagon is doing, keeping records on Quaker groups who were opposed to the war, then I think Americans say, you know what, that's not right. That's why 25 years ago, when these laws were put in place, it was because enemies lists were being kept by the president and the federal government against people opposed to the Vietnam War.